welcome to the Fairy Tales of Vienna podcast, brought to you by your host, Samantha B., who cordially invites you to sit back and relax and join her, yes me, on my adventures as I navigate the intricate dealings of the Austrian society in Vienna, coming from that magical place, the East Coast of the United States, with a suitcase and a dream and very little else. Hope you enjoy the journey as much as I'm enjoying experiencing it every single day. Chapter 2. Have they kicked you out yet? Thank you for asking. Good question, and no, surprisingly, I have not yet been kicked out. There's still plenty of time. A weird question to ask me, but let me tell you what my first few weeks have been like here. For starters, I feel like I was built for Vienna. Vienna, some have said, is a little too safe, if you know what I mean. I have no idea what that means, and I don't really understand why people would say that, but I have always felt very safe here. By always, I mean for the past 3 weeks. It's a little confusing until you get the layout, just like any new place. But once you understand how things work, you understand directions, the tram, the metro, buses, trains, a lot of people scooter here, high-powered scooters buzzing around. But once you have it down, it's fairly easy to get around. I prefer the tram myself. Not a fan of going down deep into the depths of hell to get on a subway where it's usually super warm and crowded. Of course, here it's not like New York City, but I do have my PTSD from those days, so I prefer the tram. Always up on the street, you have beautiful views of all of the incredible architecture as it whizzes past you. It is my preferred mode of transportation. I have been considering trying to hop on one of those horse and buggy style carriages, but I have been warned that those are very expensive. And my counter argument is, how fast can you run? But then I'm reminded that horses apparently can run faster than me, which I do not appreciate being reminded of on a daily basis. We get it, thanks. But I noticed something funny here, as I've noticed in other places like Amsterdam, in which it's the honor system. The society is built on trust, and when trying to get a tram or a train, I am curious as to where you get a ticket. Where do you put the ticket? Finally finding a ticket stand, I was able to purchase a ticket and had absolutely no place to put it. For those of you who are familiar with New York City or the London Tube, or the Paris Metro, or even Madrid. You have a ticket and you have to put it into a machine in order to be allowed into the system. That is not the case here. It's very confusing. But it's helpful for when you have a ticket that's run out the day before and you remember it later on. Apparently, plainclothes police officers are on the prowl and could at any moment jump out of the shadows and ask you to see your ticket. And boy howdy, if your ticket is expired or you don't have one, it is a hefty fine of 70 euros, which coming from New York City, that seems like nothing. But anyway, I digress. So there you have it, a society built on trust. It's confusing. It's almost like being in a reverse dystopian novel in which things run pretty well. People have the honor system, and most people are not throwing hissy fits or trying to control other people's bodies. It's very strange here as I navigate the inner workings of such a beautiful old city. Now, when I say that I was built for a city such as Vienna, what I mean is Vienna is quiet and clean and often goes to bed early. And on Sundays, most places are closed. You are able to go out to eat. There might be an emergency grocery store here or there, but everything is shut down, just like me. Imagine my surprise when finding out that Vienna is the 80-year-old lady that I am as well on the inside. It warms my heart knowing that I am not alone, in fact, that everyone who lives here is forced to live my hours. Now, for the young ones who are mistakenly listening to this podcast, don't lose heart. There are allegedly raves and things for you young whippersnappers to attend through all hours of the night. Just look for an abandoned building. Have at it. But for the majority of you who are listening, they're just very curious as to how is it different than how it is back home. Let me give you some prime examples. When you go out to a cafe or out to eat or to a bar, the service will come up to you, take your order, eventually bring your stuff, and will never come back. They leave you alone. So it's ideal for people who just want somewhere to sit for free Wi-Fi and maybe a cup of coffee for the next 500 to 800 hours in which you're working on your great novel or your thesis or you're watching something on your computer, honestly, I don't know. But if you do have someplace to be or want to leave someday, you're going to have to hunt down your waiter or waitress. That shouldn't be that hard, you think. And yet, we have had cases where I have friends here that are still waiting to leave the restaurant from 2 weeks ago. You think I joke, and sometimes I do. And in this case, perhaps as well. But it's a very interesting, laid-back, time means nothing, just relax atmosphere. And the same goes for offices here. At the University of Vienna, which I am attending, which is vast and beautiful and old, it also has that kind of relaxed atmosphere in which you could go in and spend days and never find someone to speak to live. Offices close down by lunch to never reopen. And on one hand, you're like, wow, that's amazing, good for them. And then on the other hand, you're like, can I talk to anybody? Is there anybody out there? Hello? And then you wonder to yourself, this is all in my head. Am I really here? But as I've learned from reading the entire series of The Hitchhiker's Guide, don't panic. Always travel with a towel. And like in improv, yes, and every situation you find yourself in. Sure, it's odd. Sure, it's strange. But by George, it is absolutely stunning. Now, you may be surprised to hear this, but it's a bit of a cooler region than I'm used to in the swampy area of the East Coast, especially with climate change. So here, as the temperatures drop, more activities start to appear. This past weekend, I had the delightful experience of going up to the vineyards. Yes, vineyards. Apparently, Vienna is surrounded by vineyards, which are still within city limits. Really easy to get to. Grab a bunch of friends that you like spending time with and head up into the hills. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to get the hop-on, hop-off ticket of this enchanting old, super bumpy train trolley thing that we did, which is great, except for you have to remember that in an old city, there are often cobblestone streets. So if you have any kind of a headache, or you're hungover, or you don't feel well, perhaps that's not the way for you to ride. We did manage to ride on that trolley that was bouncy all the way to the top of the vineyards, and we immediately got off and started to make our way around. First thing you have to do is take in the incredible scenery of beautiful, lush, green vineyards that overlook the everlasting city of Vienna. It's a pretty cool juxtaposition of being immersed in grapevines while looking at the city center. Pretty surreal. The one thing you have to keep in mind, of course, is that you're not the only one with this great idea. So it is going to be packed, especially if on that weekend day, it's one of the last warm days of the season, there's going to be billions of people. And they're going to have their kids, which is odd. Then they're going to bring their dogs, which is adorable. I don't know how fun it is for kids to go vineyard hopping. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're going to be really bored, but it's none of my business, I guess, as long as we all keep to our sides. The vineyards were absolutely breathtaking. The young wine, which is famous for this time of year, which is not finished fermenting, it reminds me of a cider, if you will, a little bit more sour. And it's called Sturm, and it is delightful, and it is potent. And you do not want to have more than 1 or 2 Sturms, because apparently the Sturm can become a storm in your belly. And if you're stuck up in the hills where it's packed with people and there are limited resources for you, you probably don't want to gamble with your tummy health. So might I suggest having a sip, sharing one, or not going over 2 at the most. But there's actually something for everyone. For my friend who was unable to partake in alcoholic beverages, She got what looked like a Hogwarts potion of grape juice, like a deep plum red, and it glittered in the sun. It really looked like we were in a potions class, which was very enchanting. I had regrets for not having gotten that one, but who knew that they were going to hand her something with glitter in it. As we were amateurs, we only went to 2 places. We weren't really into drinking that much, and everywhere was packed, so I finally found a meat and cheese type platter, charcuterie, if you will, at one of the places, was able to get the food, split it with people, and it started to get cold because the sun started to go away, and it was time for us to now make our journey back down. Walking downhill for 800 miles is something that you don't really think about because you are surrounded by good people having great conversation and dodging cars that are flying past you on very narrow pathways, which is both exciting and super scary because you know the people are coming from the vineyards as well, except for they're now empowered behind the seat of an automobile. And I do not like my odds in that. However, somehow, vineyard gods promising, we made it all the way back down to the real city to find our trains, trams, make our ways. It was such an enchanting day, and we were greeted in the end by this 800-year-old man who was adorable, who in German said, "Welcome, princess." So of course all of us assumed he was talking to us individually, and it warmed our hearts. Who was he actually talking to? We have no idea. He probably was talking to a dog or something, but we took it to mean somebody thought we were a princess, and god damn it, no one's taking that away from us. After an enchanting day in a beautiful hillside vineyard, coming all the way back down to the adorable village to catch our rides home, where the village elder has deemed us a princess. It was a perfect way to end such a journey. Thank you for listening to this week's chapter, and I invite you to join me again when I get more in depth in trying to find an apartment and other such grown-up things. Next time on the Fairy Tales of Vienna podcast with your hostess with the mostest, Samantha B. Don't forget to check out the amazing products of Prince Charming. You can't just look that good on your own, and that's a fact. Until next time, listeners.